Send Futures. Lives at age 12 to 13. Government Summary. Introduction. Introduction. This video summarises the key findings from the report Send Futures. Lives at age 12 to 13. Send Futures longitudinal study discovery phase was a research project run by the Department for Education. The purpose was to test the feasibility of conducting longitudinal survey research among young people with SEND and their families. It also provides rich data on the lives of the young people who take part in it. The discovery phase lasted 2 years. In this video, we will share some of the survey findings from the first year. The topics we asked Year 8 pupils with SEND and their parents' carers about included bullying, well-being, peer relationships and independence. We were able to explore whether experiences varied between different subgroups, including different types of SEN, different educational settings, mainstream schools, special schools and alternative provision, and whether a young person had an Education, Health and Care Plan, EHC plan. Data. The first wave of fieldwork was completed between May and September 2022 and was conducted using a combination of online surveys and face-to-face in-home interviewing for groups who are often underrepresented in survey research. Data collection was conducted with the young people themselves and with their parents or guardians, achieving about 3,500 completed responses from parents and guardians, and 3,000 from young people. Measures were put in place to enable as many young people as possible to take part, and around half of the young people took part with assistance from others. All findings have been weighted to be nationally representative of the population of young people in English state education who were in Year 8 during the 2021 to 22 academic year and were registered as having SEN. The weighting was performed using characteristics included in pupils' administrative educational records, included whether they had an EHC plan and their primary type of SEN. This means that respondents taking part in the study have been given different weights to ensure that overall figures presented in the report match those of the wider population of young people with SEN in the relevant year groups. Key findings. Well-being. Key findings. Well-being. At age 12 to 13, 72% of young people with SEN reported they were happy with their life as a whole, although 13% did not feel very happy with their life. Across the different areas of life asked about in the survey, family, friends, school, and how they look, young people with SEN were more happy with their family and less happy with their school or educational setting and how they looked. 90% reported being happy with their family, compared with 55% who were happy with their school. Among the different types of primary SEN, young people with autism and with social, emotional and mental health difficulties were the most likely to report low well-being, measured as low happiness with their life overall. In these groups, 16% and 18% respectively reported low levels of happiness with their life overall, compared with 13% among all young people with SEN. There were no differences in overall well-being between young people who had an EHC plan and those who did not, nor between those attending different types of educational setting, whether a mainstream or special school, or alternative provision. Bullying and relationships with peers. Bullying and relationships with peers. Parents reported that most young people with SEN, 72%, got on well with their peers. Nevertheless, almost a quarter, 24%, were reported to not get on with their peers. The parents of young people with certain types of primary SEN, physical and sensory needs, specific learning difficulties, and cognition and learning difficulties, were more likely than parents of young people with other types of primary SEN to report that their child got on well with their peers. Parents of young people with SEN who attended a special school or alternative provision were more likely to report their child got on well with peers than those in mainstream schools. At age 12 to 13, nearly 2/3, 63% of young people with SEN reported they had experienced at least one of the types of bullying behaviours asked about in the survey during the last year. These included being called hurtful names, being excluded from a group or from joining in activities, having possessions or money stolen, being physically threatened, or being the subject of actual physical violence. Young people who had autism or social, emotional, and mental health difficulties were more likely to report having experienced bullying in the last year than those with other types of primary SEN. Young people who had physical and sensory needs as their primary SEN were more likely than young people with other types of primary SEN to say that any name-calling they experienced was related to their SEN. Mostly, parents seem to be aware if their child experienced bullying in households where both the parent and the young person took part in the survey. The parents and the young person's answers on whether the young person had experienced bullying was the same in 85% of cases. Perhaps unsurprisingly, having experienced bullying in the last year was associated with lower levels of well-being. Young people who reported being bullied were more likely to report being unhappy with their life as a whole than those who had not experienced bullying. Current and future independence. Current and future independence. At age 12 to 13, 44% of young people with SEN spent time with friends unsupervised by an adult most weeks. Just under 1 in 4, 23%, never spent any time with friends unsupervised. Some groups of young people were more likely than others to say that they never spent time with friends without adult supervision. young people with an EHC plan, young people who attended a special school or alternative provision, and young people who had autism as their primary SEN. The vast majority of young people, 94%, and their parents, 85%, expected that the young person would go on to have a job in the future. Just over half of young people with SEN, 54%, reported that they would like to go to college or university after leaving school. Just over half of parents, 56%, reported that the support provided by their child's school to prepare them for adulthood was helpful, although a substantial minority, 20%, reported that it was not helpful. Parents of young people who had social, emotional and mental health difficulties or autism as their primary SEN were the groups least likely to say the support provided had been helpful, 48% and 52% respectively, compared with the parents of young people with other types of needs. Conversely, the parents of young people with physical and sensory needs were those most likely to have found the school support helpful, 69%. Conclusion. Conclusion. The findings demonstrate the potential value of a large-scale survey with young people with SEN and their parents or guardians. A study like this allows for a detailed exploration of these young people's lives in a way that would not be possible through drawing on existing studies of a general population of young people or on small-scale studies of particular subpopulations within the wider SEN population. The study oversampled groups which are often less well represented in surveys of this nature and employed innovative methods to recruit and retain these sample members. Through this, the SEND Futures longitudinal study discovery phase data offers the opportunity to explore the lives of several understudied groups, such as young people with SEN who receive free school meals. The report draws only on selected data from the study, which covers a wealth of different topic areas. In addition to the data presented here, the study includes data on the extent to which young people's special educational needs are being met, their transition to secondary school, parents' views on special and mainstream education, and how the young person is getting on at school. It is also worth noting that the analysis in this report is based on descriptive and bivariate analysis only. It does not allow for conclusions about causality, nor to disentangle the respective impacts of characteristics on pupils' outcomes. There is thus considerable scope for future research to explore the data, looking at other topic areas and/or applying more advanced analytical methods. On completion of Wave 2 of the study, it will also become possible to explore changes over time in the lives of young people with SEN.